Hi Toni.
Hi.
So, can I have your thoughts on David Cameron?
Which thought would you like? The one that's politically correct or the one that's politically incorrect? If you want the politically incorrect, I think the man's a disgrace to his country.
Incorrect is good. A character summation of David Cameron.
A sellout, spineless, an amoeba, and a coward.
Good. Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, the sooner he's out of office, the better.
Okay, and question number 2. Angela Merkel. Do you have any thoughts on Angela Merkel, her behaviour, her policies?
Well, she's the controller of David Cameron, so they kind of come hand in hand. Miss Angela Merkel, I don't understand why she has to call herself Angela when it's quite clearly Angela, but she sold her country out. And when you see young girls sending videos for you to put into English subtitles for them, where they're pleading for the men to look after them because they've got so much fear because of the mass immigration she's let into the country, I'm sorry, she sold her people out too, and I think she's selling her country out, and along with David Cameron, he's selling his country out.
I think the polls overwhelmingly show that she won't be in come the next elections over there.
Well, that'll be a blessing for the German people, depending on who they've got going into position after her.
Okay, and thoughts on the EU? Do we need it? Should we be in it? Should we leave it?
No, we've got to be out of it. And the scaremongering of this country can't survive without the EU is absolute bullshit. It's rubbish. We were a great nation prior, we could be a great nation after. So it really makes no difference about being in the EU, apart from the fact that it's costing this country an absolute fortune. And all they do is get their nails painted and they get their makeup done for free, and we're all paying for it because we're all stupid enough to do it.
Okay, and what do you think of what place does religion have in today's society and culture?
What place does religion have? Look, you've got to have freedom of religion, and nobody's saying that shouldn't be the case, but religion has no place in politics, and politics has no place in religion. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a Christian country, and I'm an atheist. No faith should supersede the faith of a country. And at the moment, we're seeing that's exactly what's happening, is there's all of these excuses being made, and to be politically correct to a religion, which is actually a political ideology, and that is being infiltrated into our government, which means that we're now being controlled via religion.
Yeah, just that. How far should society go to accommodate religious practices or beliefs in the workplace or on the street?
I don't think they should. Your religion should be something very personal to you. Your religion is a very private thing. If anybody who is devoutly religious, they don't go out and try to impose it onto other people. So we don't have to accommodate their religion. They can practice their religion. Nobody has a problem with somebody practicing their religion. But that religion imposing into our government, imposing into the people of this country, and stifling debate, stifling conversation, stifling free speech, not acceptable. We can't accommodate that.
Well, that leads into the next question, or the next point about Muslim mayors. There's a number of towns and cities in England that have mayors who identify as being Muslim.
Well, my concern is that they identify themselves as being Muslim. They don't identify themselves as being just somebody who is of this country, for the people of this country. They actually make a point of stating they happen to be Muslim. Surely, if your religion has nothing to do with your position, why do you need to even state that you're Muslim? Why are you just not a people of the people? That's what we're not seeing anymore. And when you've also got to remember that there was I can't remember the guy's name, who actually stood up and said, we will have a Muslim government. And that is proving to be the case, isn't it?
Yeah, and what about Sadiq Khan really played heavily on, I'm a Muslim, but now you're saying he's an agnostic Muslim. You know.
Is there such a thing?
Seems like he used the Muslim title to get the vote.
He did use it to get the vote. He also used it to play the victim. But the truth is he had linked to extremism. Why have we put somebody into position who's got links with extremism?
And who calls voters bastards?
Refers to voters as being bastards, but God forbid you should say anything, that's even remotely derogatory about Islam, because you will end up serving time in prison for doing so.
And what about Donald Trump? Necessity?
Yeah, necessity to if we're going to keep hold of our free speech. He's the true epitome of free speech. You may not agree with everything he says, but he has the right to say it. And I think that's what people are realising, that actually having a freedom of opinion and a freedom of thought is not a bad thing. If we take that away, you're taking away the rights of the individual person.
And what about the word racist today? The word racist has got such mileage It's like the new witch word. You know, back in the old days, folk didn't want to be called a witch, they'd be hunted, demonised, killed. Nowadays, racist. People live in fear of being called a racist.
If you take me back 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, and somebody had called me a racist, I would have been mortified. When I had friends that were black, I had friends that were mixed race, I had friends who were Jewish, friends who weren't. I had friends of all different denominations. And if somebody had actually referred to me as that, I would have been absolutely mortified. But the truth of it is now, the word has become redundant. It no longer represents what it once represented, and that means that true racist attacks are going to get ignored, not taken as seriously, because actually the word's been used to such an extent that if you throw it at people, they wear it as a badge of honour. Who created that? The politically correct.
And the trolls.
And the trolls. Oh, I have fun with trolls. I love trolls. Me and trolls have a real love. They love to hate me, and I love the fact that they hate me. And I get trolled regularly. And the truth of it is, they are the ones that want to shut down free speech. They just don't like your opinions, and instead of debating it, they troll you because that's much more fun.
That was the next question on trolls and being trolled. So what does being English mean to you?
It's my national identity. And the more they keep telling us we can't call ourselves English, the more we will stand up and say, but we are. And when you look at the way that England, Ireland, Scotland are, they're 4 nations to make up the United Kingdom. But the only nation that can't call themselves nationally English is the English.
But what is, I know what makes me Scottish, what makes you English. It's
What makes me English? This is what makes me English. My love of the English countryside, our English heritage, our English history, as bloodshed as it may be. It's part of what made us who we are. And when they say, well, yes, but you're a mishmash of different... Yes, we are. But it's the fact that we embrace being a mishmash of all different people that invaded us that makes us English. That's what makes us English.
And it's the religious system, the political system, the legal system under which you grew up. It's the folk tales, it's the food, it's the...
Everything from an English breakfast is, if you talk to anybody, I mean, you go to America, they have bacon with syrup. I've never quite got that. Come to England, you're going to get bacon, eggs and hash brown. That's just what you're going to get.
It's also like the steel industry, the industries in place in your town that you grew up.
Look, you had wool. We had the wool industry. We've had the cotton industry. We had the coal miners. You know, we've had all different industries throughout England. The trouble is, it's been taken away from us. We didn't give it away, it was taken away.
And that ties into cultural identity versus nationalism versus Nazism, which is what you're always called. If you stand up to be English, you can be anything else except English.
Yeah, you can be Scottish or Irish or Welsh, just don't say you're English, because it's like a really bad swear word. And the fact that the person asking me these questions has this broad Scottish accent must be a little bit of confusion for the English that are listening.
Hey, I'm speaking politely.
You are. And the truth of it is, you would actually defend the rights of the English to be called English, which proves that the Scottish don't have a problem with it, but the Scottish government do.
What issues do feminists need to tackle today?
Well, let's get one thing right. You refer to them as feminists, I refer to them as feminazis, because they don't stand up for the rights of women. They stand up for cultural beliefs, cultural ways of life. That's not going to help. What we need to do is that real feminists, whether they be male or female, they're the people that need to stand up and take back the word feminist, because what these feminazis are doing is destroying what the word was always meant to be about. And that is about standing up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. That's why the suffragettes were the ones that made a difference when it came to slavery. They stood up and they said no more.
And how do you feel about gender differences? People are always moaning, oh, equality, equality, but there is no equality because biologically everyone's built differently. People are made differently, but people moan about this feminazis in particular.
Well, that's because, look, whether we like it or not...
Do you embrace your gender differences?
Absolutely. And I actually like the fact that you and I are made differently. You're built differently, I'm built differently. I have things that feed children, you don't. We are made differently. And that actually needs to be recognised. That doesn't make me less equal to you. We're equal. We're just different. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with being different.
Do you have any thoughts on the left? Are they stupid? Are they just fucking moronic?
Blind, ignorant and apologists. There you go.
And how can we accommodate cultural practices that are at odds with our own? For instance, FGM,
we can't accommodate
sex marriage, honour killings. How can we live side by side with these cultural differences?
We can't.
Alien to British.
We can't accommodate those kind of cultural differences. And people who say, oh, well, it's a cultural practice, it's a cultural difference. Well, it's not my culture. It's not the culture of England. Therefore, it cannot be tolerated. It has to be addressed. It must be addressed head on, and it's a criminal offence, and they should be charged as a criminal offence. We have the laws that protect us. We don't need new laws. We just need to use the laws we have and impose them on.
But together with these cultural practices, we're seeing parallel legal systems springing up. How do you feel about parallel
Quasi-legal systems? Do you mean quasi-legal systems?
Quasi-legal, illegal legal systems?
Well, they shouldn't be allowed, should they? They should be banned. You need to shut down any legal system that isn't our legal system. We have laws in place. We have English law. We have common law. They are the only laws that should be taken into account in this country.
And how do you feel about segregation? That's something else we're seeing with Labour.
Hate it.
Allowing segregated seating in order to pimp
Hate
for the
it.
Muslim vote or whatever vote, minority vote they're getting.
Well, that's what that segregation, that is again making women less worthy than a man. Well, I don't think we are. We're equal, just different. And segregation, actually, you might as well call it division, because you're dividing people. The minute you start dividing people, you're weakening the structure of the country as a whole.
There was one Labour meeting whereby women even had to phone a separate phone number in order to get their ticket. They couldn't even get the same ticket from the same phone number. That's not British.
It's not British or English. No British person, no English person would want that. And I know many who are Muslim who don't want that either. But how can these so-called feminists not stand up for those who don't want segregation, but actually pander to those who do? So what we're actually going to do is ignore those that are victimised by it, whilst championing those who don't feel victimised by it.
And so, but you think, you know, how far we came in civilization, Britain would stand up to this with effortlessly, but we're not. Has Britain lost its backbone, its spine? Where has it gone? We're not standing up to these things.
I don't think the British or the English have lost their backbone or their spine. I think they're starting to get their backbone and their spine back. But you've got to remember, every time you stand up, you're demonised as being far right, you're demonised as being an extremist. But we're not killing, torturing or harming anybody. We're standing up for our right to freedom of speech. When you take that away from people and they can lose their jobs, they can lose their freedom and be imprisoned, well, of course, there's this fear of who's going to look after my kids if I'm in prison. That is a problem in itself. But what we have got to do is start saying, do you know what, if we lose a job, we lose a job. We'll take that risk. It's what most of us do every day.
And what does multiculturalism mean to you versus what multiculturalism actually looks like in Britain?
Multiculturalism, I don't believe in the word multiculturalism because it's been proven to fail. I like a multicoloured country. I like the fact that we actually do go along and people cook Jamaican food and we'll go along and we eat it and we enjoy it and we socialise together. But that doesn't mean to say that cultural practices should be accepted into this country that are not. They don't work within this country. They're not our cultural practices, and actually most of them are barbaric. That has to stop. So multiculturalism doesn't work. But a multicoloured country is a totally different thing altogether.
So immigration policies therefore have to be more stringent, or?
Well, me personally, you've got to shut the borders, you've got to get control of immigration, there should be a points-based system. We can't even investigate if a man's guilty of rape or murder in a country that he's coming in from. And when we look at the influx of immigration, I'm curious as to why is it we have 5 times more Muslim immigration in opposed to Christian immigration. Why is that? Why are the Christians being ignored when they're being slaughtered in their masses? But we're all made to feel guilty when you see the baby on the beach that was totally abused by the media to silence people like me, because it was this guilt thing. They want to guilt us, and we're told constantly we should feel guilty about our past and our history, and now even our skin colour. Well, I didn't choose to be born white, I just happened to be white.
Well, that ties nicely into my next question, which is all about white guilt, post-colonial guilt, and white ceasing to be a colour. White are the only people that can be demonised today, slandered, laughed at, with no recompense whatsoever.
Well, also the only people who you can't be racist towards, even though you get the likes of Diane Abbott who like to say things like white people like to divide and rule. Well, that makes her a racist. So why is she still in the House of Lords? Why is anybody listening to a word she's got to say? She's clearly a racist. If I'd said that about blacks or Asians, I would be deemed a racist. It's a 2-tiered system. It's been going on for a long time. If you don't stop it, what you're going to end up is every person who happens to have been born like me, who happens to have blonde hair, blue eyes and white skin, not through choice, through my birthright, will be told that actually by pure virtue of the fact you were born that way, you must be a racist. Well, that's absolute nonsense. There's nothing on racist bone in me, but I also want to apologise to those who call me a racist, because it doesn't mean anything anymore.
And does the media bias play into or feed this whole white guilt, white racist?
Well, of course they do, because they'll take parts of our history and say, oh, you know what, we had slaves and therefore we must apologise for having had slaves. Well, there was Barbary slaves, they were white. They were sold to Arabs and black countries. But But we don't sit there and go, oh, we were victimised because you had white slaves before black slaves. We go, do you know what? It's history. And history, whilst we can learn from it, we can't live in it. And that's what we're seeing right now.
I read that the word slave comes from Slavic, which is a white race. They were the first slaves.
It's very true.
Any thoughts on Hillary Clinton?
I've not looked too much into it, but from what I can gather from a lot of the Americans I speak to, the worst thing that could happen to America is getting Hillary Clinton. And whether people like or agree with everything Donald Trump is saying, what they have to understand is he's showing you that actually freedom of speech is important. If you're not going to back him for any other reason than to keep hold of your freedom of speech, then put Hillary in and you're going to lose every right you ever had.
And from one blonde to another, how about Katie Hopkins?
Do you know what? There's a lot of things she says I don't agree with, but I love the fact she won't be silenced on her freedom of speech. I love the fact that she's not afraid to say things that other people go, oh my God, that was too far. But actually, she has her right to her opinion. That's what we have to embrace. People have a right to an opinion. You can't keep taking it away from them. So I don't have a problem with Kate Hopkins.
You also just recently run and you got an amazing amount of votes for the PCC.
I did.
Role in Bedfordshire. Do you have any thoughts on the state of the police force in Britain today, where it needs to go, what's going wrong with it?
Well, the guidelines have got to be shifted for a start. You know, you can't impose guidelines onto police officers and then tell them that they're not rules. Well, yes, they are. If I start a job tomorrow and they give me a set of guidelines, I'm going to do my job in accordance to those guidelines. That's what's been done to our police. Our police actually feel very demoralised. Most of them are doing the job just purely to get their pension at the end of it. They don't give a stuff about the job anymore. They're past caring about the job. So we need to actually give our police officers the right to do their job equally and fairly for everybody. No special measures for anybody.
That ties into preferential treatment. Some members of society are receiving preferential treatment. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's got to stop. It's wrong.
The burqa, how do you feel about the burqa?
Well, everybody knows that I would ban the burqa. And I have had even one of my fellow English Democrats who doesn't agree with me on a complete ban of the burqa. But it's not a religious requirement. And actually I support the likes of Taj Hargi, who I think bravely actually set light to a burqa. He finds it so oppressive to women. And he's a British imam. The trouble is we're not getting British imams, we're getting foreign imams who are coming into the mosque and they're preaching hate. So do you blame the non-Muslim community for feeling afraid and intimidated and bullied, or do you blame the Muslim community for listening to the hate preachers and not exposing them? I would say that the latter are the ones that are at fault. They're the ones that need to change that. We don't need to change it, they do.
I think I also read that Taj has opened a gay mosque in Africa, is that right?
He has, yeah. I actually have made contact with Taj. I spoke to his wife, lovely woman. And I would like to see more British imams like Taj Hargi. I actually think that he would be the way that you actually can get a full acceptance of people practicing their right to their religious freedom without it imposing on every other part of society.
And the last question is, where do you see Britain going? What is England's future? I guess not Britain's future, England's future, because it seems to be this entity today that's not allowed it to have its own voice. So what do you see as the future for England? From what I'm seeing, when I moved to London, it's taken over, your country is gone. I don't see there's a way back for it.
Well, there is a way back. We do have a way back, and that's why the English Democrats are doing what they're doing. But the only way you're going to get England to actually be treated is if we are given the same preferential treatment that Scotland, Ireland and Wales do achieve through their own governments. We need our own parliament, we need our own voice, and the English community need to be heard. And that makes no difference if you're black, brown or white. If you are English or culturally English, you have a right to be treated equally. But I do think that you're seeing now people are, I read a poll, there's 80% of people now recognise themselves as being English only, not British. Because the word British is being imposed on you, so your national identity is being stripped from you. I would like them to feel proud to call themselves English and fly their flag with pride.
The English flag is now a mark of shame.
No, it's not. It might be for some. No, those who want to say that it's a mark of shame are the ones who haven't got the balls to actually fly it themselves. I will fly my English flag with pride.
The Scottish SNP fuckers can fly their flag, England's can't.
Well, you've got Nicola Sturgeon. I mean, you think that England's screwed. You've got
Jimmy
Nicola
Frankie.
Sturgeon.
Nicola
Jimmy.
All right, Toni, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yay.